What's the dumbest way? Someone covered up their crime. At 2 a.m., Zach pounded on my door, screaming, "Let me in! The cops are here. They're going door to door." I saw police cars outside, blue lights flashing everywhere. Zach pushed past me into my apartment. Listen carefully. We've been together since 8 p.m. Pizza, Marvel Rivals, Netflix. I noticed blood on his shoe, his hands shaking. What happened? Doesn't matter. They're checking alibis for something on Riverside Drive. A knock came immediately. Police flashlight swept across my window. Zach grabbed my shoulder hard. 8 p.m. Pizza. Gaming. Got it? You owe me from college. The detective asked if I'd been home all night. Zach squeezed harder. I stammered yes. He'd been with me since 8. After they left, Zach collapsed on my couch. I hit someone. I panicked and left. He showed me his car outside with the cracked bumper. No cameras on Riverside. Nobody saw. He made me delete my Ring doorbell footage. Texted me exact details to memorize. Pizza at 8:15 from Pizza Hut. Marvel Rivals until 11. Then Breaking Bad. He kept reminding me about taking blame for my drug possession in college. Your nursing career would have been over. I saved you. The news broke next morning. 22-year-old woman critical from hit and run on Riverside. Single mom, worked 2 jobs, had a 4-year-old daughter. Zach insisted we couldn't know it was her. The detective returned 3 days later with follow-up questions. Showed traffic cam footage of Zach's car near the scene. I stuck to the story, but my voice cracked. Funny, your neighbor says Zach's car wasn't here, the detective said. Zach texted constantly after. Stay strong. You're in this now. You already lied to police, and that's a felony. The victim's family posted videos online. Her daughter crying for mommy. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, kept seeing that little girl's face. Zach got more aggressive each day. Change your story now. We both go to prison. Remember, I know about your psych ward stay too. The victim's condition worsened. Her family held prayer vigils at the hospital. Her daughter's 5th birthday was tomorrow. She might die before it. The detective came back. Last chance to change your statement. We know you're lying. Traffic cams prove Zach wasn't here. Zach texted immediately. Don't crack. I'll tell everyone about your mental breakdown, your sewer's light attempt. Nobody will believe you. Then I saw the news update. Victim needed emergency brain surgery. Might not survive. The daughter on TV holding a handmade card. I made this to help mommy feel better. She promised we'd have cake tomorrow. That's when I broke completely. I drove to the police station at midnight. He wasn't here. I lied about everything. Showed the detective all Zach's texts, the threats, the blackmail. He said he'd expose my mental health history if I didn't cover for him. The detective took everything, had me write it all down, sign every page. They revealed Zach wasn't just drunk that night. Toxicology from the scene showed cocoa too. This was his 3rd DUI, license already revoked. He'd stolen his roommate's car to avoid detection. The victim had been left in a ditch for 2 hours in freezing rain, would have died if a jogger hadn't found her. Zach had Googled hit-run jail time and how to threaten witnesses before coming to my apartment. The detective said they'd been testing my honesty, already had Zach on CCTV at 3 bars. The victim had spinal damage, would never walk again. They'd been building cases against both of us until I came forward with the truth. Zach was arrested at his mother's house at dawn. Tried to fight cops, got tackled on the lawn, screamed I was a snitch, a rat, a liar. They charged him with vehicular assault, leaving the scene, DUI, witness tampering, intimidation. The prosecutor offered me immunity for testimony. Zach's family harassed me online. You destroyed his life over an accident. This isn't over. I testified at trial, provided all evidence. Zach's lawyer tried character assassination. Then yesterday, my phone exploded with notifications. A video was trending everywhere. Zach from prison, talking to some true crime podcaster. I never threatened anyone. Check his psych records. Involuntary commitment for delusions. He was driving that night. Created this whole story because the voices told him I was evil. I tried to help him, took the blame, but his guilt made him snap again. Classic paranoid delusion. You can't trust someone with mental health issues. I'm the real victim here. Before I knew it, my life was crumbling, and Zach was the only one who could stop it. I had to go visit him. I wake up to my phone buzzing like it's trying to drill through my nightstand. The screen shows 247 notifications. My hands shake as I unlock it and scroll through the messages. Crazy, fraud, liar, someone who destroyed an innocent man's life. The words blur together, but they all say the same thing. I'm the villain now. The nursing supervisor's text from 6 a.m. sits at the top of my messages. Call me immediately regarding your employment status. My stomach drops. I screenshot the worst threats before my hands get too shaky. Someone with a blank profile picture sent me a message saying they know where I work. Another one says I should die the same way I tried before. I delete my public Instagram account, and then my Twitter. My thumb hovers over the delete button for a few seconds on each one. Years of posts, gone. I keep one locked backup account just to document what's happening. My neighbor knocks on my door while I'm still in my pajamas. She looks uncomfortable, won't quite meet my eyes. Someone spray painted your car last night. The super is pretty mad about it. I thank her and close the door before she can say anything else. My laptop is already open on the kitchen table. 3 news outlets have emailed requesting comment on the Zach situation. One of them is a local TV station. I close the laptop without responding. The nursing supervisor answers on the first ring. Her voice is cold and professional. I'm being placed on temporary paid administrative leave pending a state board review. The publicity triggered it. She emphasizes this isn't disciplinary yet, just protective. But her tone tells me everything. She's already decided I'm guilty of something. Maybe lying to police. Maybe being mentally unstable like Zach said. Maybe just being too much drama for a hospital to deal with. I hang up feeling like someone just erased my entire professional identity. 10 years of nursing school and work, gone in one viral podcast episode. I spend the afternoon pacing my apartment. The walls feel closer than they did yesterday. I keep replaying Zach's interview in my head, his voice so calm and reasonable, the way he painted me as this delusional person who couldn't tell reality from the voices in his head. I never said I heard voices. That was his invention, but nobody checking the facts will know that. I realize the only way to slow this damage is confronting him directly. If Zach publicly takes back even part of his story, maybe the harassment will ease. Maybe the licensing board will see I'm not the villain he painted. It's a long shot, but doing nothing means watching my life fall apart in real time. I call Detective Finch around 4 p.m. She picks up on the third ring. I explain what's happening and ask if visiting Zach in prison will make things worse legally. She's quiet for a few seconds. Then she warns me not to bargain with him. Don't threaten him. Don't make any promises. Assume everything I say could be recorded or repeated in court. Her calm procedural guidance steadies me a little. At least someone still treats me like a credible person instead of a delusional liar. That night, I pull up all of Zach's old threatening texts from the original case. I organize them on my laptop by date and time. Reading them again makes me feel sick. The calculated way he used my college drug charge against me. The way he brought up my psych history. The way he made me afraid of losing everything I'd worked for. Every single message is proof that his current story is gaslighting. He didn't help a mentally ill friend. He manipulated someone he had leverage over. Guilt hits me hard around 2 a.m. when I can't sleep. I keep spiraling between the lie I told at first and the truth I eventually spoke. My brain won't let me forget either one. I pull up the old news footage on my phone. Jalea's daughter holding that handmade birthday card. The little girl's voice saying she made it to help mommy feel better. That memory anchors me. Whatever I did wrong at the start, I made it right when it mattered most. My mistakes don't erase Zach's crime. They don't erase what Jalea is going through. Morning comes and I email Prosecutor Sinclair. I ask for guidance on visiting Zach and whether I should make any public statements. His paralegal responds within an hour. Sinclair will call me tomorrow. Until then, say nothing publicly. Just knowing the prosecutor's office is still in my corner helps me breathe easier. I'm not completely alone in this. I leave a careful voicemail with the victim's advocate assigned to Jalea's case. I explain what's happening with the podcast and the harassment. I ask how to avoid causing her family more pain. I make it clear I'm not asking for anything from them. I just want to make sure my actions don't hurt them more than they already have. The advocate calls back that afternoon. Her voice is kind. She actually believes me. That nearly makes me cry. I draft a professional email to podcaster Vivian Sellers. I request a right of reply or correction. I cite specific factual errors in Zach's interview. The part where he said I was driving that night. The part where he said I heard voices. The part where he said he took the blame to protect me. All lies. The auto response says she's reviewing correspondence. I'm not holding my breath for a real response. But creating a paper trail of my attempts to correct the record feels important. The licensing board will want to see I tried to fix this. The prison website looks like it was designed in 2003 and half the links are broken. I click through page after page trying to find the visitation scheduling section. Every form requires different information, and the instructions contradict each other. I spend 20 minutes creating an account, only to discover I need to verify my identity through a separate portal. The whole system seems designed to discourage visitors. After an hour of frustration, I finally locate the scheduling calendar and see open slots 3 days from now. I select a morning time slot and read through the rules. No phones, no recording devices, no bags larger than a small clutch. I can bring my ID, and that's basically it. The restrictions make sense, but they also mean I'll have no way to document what Zach says. I'll need to take notes immediately after the visit ends. Write down everything while it's fresh. The confirmation email arrives with a visitor number and detailed instructions about parking and security procedures. I save it to a folder labeled Prison Visit and stare at my calendar. 3 days until I voluntarily walk into a room with the person currently destroying my life online. The whole thing feels unreal, like I'm watching myself make this decision from outside my body. That night around 11 p.m., I'm lying in bed scrolling mindlessly when a memory hits me so hard I have to sit up. Sophomore year, campus police found pills in my dorm room during a random search. I was panicking, crying, knowing a drug charge would end my nursing dreams before they started. Zach was there visiting and he just calmly said he'd take the blame. Said he had nothing to lose, his parents had money for lawyers, he'd get it expunged anyway. I remember feeling so grateful, so relieved, so lucky to have a friend like that. But now I see it differently. He wasn't being generous. He was making an investment. He was buying leverage over me for later. That realization makes me feel sick and sad at the same time. Our entire friendship was probably just him building insurance policies, collecting favors he could cash in when he needed control. The college drug charge, the times he covered for me when I was late to class, the loans he gave me that he never asked me to repay. None of it was friendship. It was all just Zach manufacturing debt I'd owe him someday. I feel angry at him, but also angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. Every kind thing he did came with invisible strings attached. I can't sleep, so I open my laptop and start writing. I title the document Prison Visit Script and force myself to think strategically instead of emotionally. I write out exactly what I will and won't say to Zach. I'll ask him directly to retract the mental illness claims publicly. I'll stay calm and factual. I won't beg or threaten. I won't get drawn into arguments about the past. I write the key sentence I need to say and read it over and over. I need you to tell the truth about what happened. Simple, direct, impossible to misinterpret. I stand up and go to the bathroom mirror. My reflection looks tired and scared. I say the sentence out loud. My voice shakes. I say it again, still shaky. I say it 10 more times until my voice sounds steady and clear. I feel ridiculous practicing in the mirror like I'm rehearsing for a play, but I need some sense of control going into that visitation room. I need to know I can say what I came to say without falling apart or getting manipulated into Zach's narrative. I print the script and put it in my wallet. I won't be able to bring it into the prison, but I can review it right before I go in. I wake up at 4 a.m. with my heart beating so fast I think I'm dying. My chest feels tight and I can't catch my breath. I'm convinced I'm having a heart attack. I sit up in bed and try to breathe slowly, but the panic just gets worse. My hands are numb and tingling. I remember the grounding techniques from therapy years ago. 5 things I can see. My lamp, my dresser, the window, my shoes, the doorknob. 4 things I can touch. The blanket, the mattress, my shirt, the wall. 3 things I can hear. The heater running, a car outside, my own breathing. 2 things I can smell. My laundry detergent, the faint smell of coffee from yesterday. 1 thing I can taste, the metallic fear taste in my mouth. Slowly, very slowly, my heart rate comes down. My breathing evens out. The numbness in my hands fades. I lie back down, but I know I won't sleep again. I realize I can't white-knuckle my way through this crisis alone. I need professional support. I need someone who understands trauma and public shaming and gaslighting. I need help processing whatever is about to happen at that prison. Morning comes and I search online for therapists who specialize in trauma. Most have waiting lists weeks or months long. I'm about to give up when I find a profile for someone named Kiara Lee. Her bio says she works with people dealing with public shaming, gaslighting, and complex trauma. I call her office not expecting anything, but the receptionist says there's actually a cancellation for next week. Right after my prison visit, I take it immediately. The intake call with Kiara Lee happens that afternoon. Her voice is warm but direct, no fake therapy sweetness. She asks basic questions about what I'm dealing with and doesn't seem shocked or judgmental. She mentions she's worked with other people whose reputations were attacked online and who were dealing with manipulation from people they trusted. Hearing her say that makes me feel less alone. She explains her approach focuses on helping people separate what they're actually responsible for from what they're being blamed for. She talks about moral injury and how telling the truth after lying can actually be more traumatic than the original lie. Booking that first session gives me something concrete to hold on to. A plan for processing whatever happens at the prison visit. A place to put all the feelings I've been trying to manage alone. The morning of the visit, I wake up early and my hands are already shaking. I don't trust myself to drive, so I decide to take the bus. I get dressed in plain clothes, nothing that will cause problems at security. I grab my ID and the visitor confirmation printout. I leave my phone at home since I can't bring it anyway. The bus stop is 2 blocks away and the weather matches my mood perfectly. Gray sky, cold wind, everything feels heavy and damp. I get on the bus and find a seat near the back. Other passengers get on and off at various stops. A few people glance at me, but most are lost in their own worlds. I wonder if anyone recognizes me from the viral story. Probably not. I'm probably just another invisible person on public transit dealing with problems nobody else knows about. The bus route takes 40 minutes and I spend the whole time staring out the window watching the city pass by. I pull out my phone and open the Notes app where I saved Zach's exact quotes from the podcast. I read through each one slowly and carefully. He said I was driving that night. Complete lie, contradicted by traffic cams showing his car at the scene. He said voices told me he was evil. Another lie. I never claimed to hear voices. That's his invention. He said he took the blame to protect me. Backwards, he forced me to lie to protect him through threats and blackmail. I start adding notes next to each quote, writing out the evidence that proves he's lying. Traffic cam footage shows Zach's car. Detective testimony confirms my cooperation. Text messages prove his threats. I'm analyzing his manipulation tactics like I'm studying for a test. Breaking down each lie clinically helps me feel less like a helpless victim and more like someone gathering ammunition for battle. By the time the bus reaches my stop, I have a clear mental map of every false claim and every piece of evidence that contradicts it. My phone buzzes in my hand. An email from the state nursing board. I open it and my stomach drops. Formal investigation opened. They're requesting my written statement and all supporting documents within 14 days. The jolt of dread is physical, like someone punched me in the chest. This is really happening. My professional license is genuinely at risk. Everything I worked for, all those years of school and training and clinical hours, all of it could disappear because of Zach's lies. I forward the email to Sinclair's office immediately. I open my notes app and add respond to board inquiry to my growing crisis to-do list. The list is getting long. Prison visit today, therapy next week, board response in 2 weeks. Each item feels like a weight I'm carrying, but at least I have a list. At least I have concrete actions I can take instead of just drowning in panic. The prison is surrounded by fencing and security cameras. I park in the visitor lot and walk to the main entrance. Inside, there's a security checkpoint that looks like airport screening, but more intense. I put my ID and paperwork in a tray. I walk through the metal detector and it beeps. The guard tells me to empty my pockets. I pull out some coins I forgot about. I go through again. No beep this time. The guard checks my paperwork and stamps my visitor pass. The whole process takes forever and I'm hyper-aware of every detail. The metal detector's electronic beep. The guard's bored expression like he's done this 1,000 times. The other visitors waiting their turn, most of them looking tired and resigned. The waiting room smells like industrial cleaner mixed with anxiety. Hard plastic chairs bolted to the floor. A vending machine in the corner. A woman tries to comfort her crying toddler, bouncing the kid on her knee and making soothing sounds. I wonder what brought her here. What her version of this nightmare looks like. Who she's visiting and what they did. Eventually my name gets called and a different guard leads me through a series of locked doors into the visitation room. Zach walks in and sits down across from me at a small table. He's thinner than I remember, his face more angular. But his eyes have that same calculating look I've seen 100 times before. Before I can even say hello, he launches into his prepared speech. He tells me he was protecting me, that I was spiraling, that he had to take control of the narrative before I hurt myself again. Every word is carefully chosen to hook my guilt and activate my shame. I feel the old familiar pull of his manipulation, the way he makes everything sound reasonable and caring. But I stay focused on my script. I take a breath and say clearly that I need him to retract the mental illness claims publicly. My voice stays steady. He doesn't even pause. He pivots immediately to blaming Jalea. He says she was jaywalking anyway, that it wasn't really his fault, that if she hadn't been in the road, nothing would have happened. I feel my stomach turn, but I keep my voice calm. I repeat my request. He needs to tell the truth about what happened. He leans back in his chair and smiles slightly, like he's enjoying this, like this is all just a game to him and I'm losing. I walk out of that visitation room with my legs feeling shaky and my head spinning from Zach's manipulation. The guard escorts me back through the locked doors and I grab my stuff from the security locker. Outside the prison, I sit in my car in the visitor parking lot and pull out a notebook from my glove box. My hands are still trembling, but I start writing down everything that just happened while it's fresh in my mind. I write Zach's exact words about protecting me and taking control of the narrative. I note how his face looked when he blamed Jalea for jaywalking, that slight smile like he was enjoying my discomfort. I document every manipulation tactic he used, the way he pivoted from fake concern to victim blaming without missing a beat. My hand cramps from writing so fast, but I keep going because I need this record. I need proof I'm not imagining his gaslighting, that this really happened the way I remember it. The memo runs 3 full pages front and back. I date it and sign it at the bottom before starting my car. I take a photo of each page with my phone and email them to myself for backup. The drive home takes 40 minutes and I replay the visit in my head the whole time, catching details I forgot to write down. I pull over twice to add notes to my phone. When I finally get home, I collapse on my couch feeling drained but also weirdly focused. I did what I came to do. I asked Zach to tell the truth and he refused. Now I have documentation of that refusal. I heat up some leftover pizza and try to watch TV, but I can't focus on anything. My brain keeps circling back to Zach's face, his casual cruelty, the way he made hitting someone and leaving them in a ditch sound like no big deal. I fall asleep on the couch around midnight, still wearing my clothes. The next morning, I wake up to my phone buzzing nonstop. I grab it and see notifications flooding in. Vivian Sellers posted something on social media. I open the link and my stomach drops. She's posted a teaser for an upcoming podcast episode with the caption, "Exclusive update on the Zach case." You won't believe what the witness admitted during their prison meeting. The comments are already exploding. People are saying I begged Zach for forgiveness, that I admitted I lied at trial, that I'm pathetic and unstable. None of that happened, not even close. I read through dozens of comments calling me names, saying I destroyed an innocent man's life, hoping I get what I deserve. My first reaction is pure outrage. I want to comment and correct the record, explain what really happened, defend myself. But then the outrage turns into this heavy numbness. I can't control what Vivian publishes. She's going to edit and frame things however she wants for maximum drama. All I can control is my own documentation and responses. I screenshot her post and the worst comments before closing the app. I forward everything to Detective Finch with a brief email explaining the situation. Then I put my phone face down on the table and make myself eat breakfast even though I have no appetite. An hour later, Detective Finch calls me back. Her voice is calm and professional as always. She tells me to file a formal complaint with the Department of Corrections about Zach's misuse of media access. She emails me a template while we're still on the phone and walks me through exactly what to include. She explains this creates an official record that could restrict his future interviews if the prison takes it seriously. Having a concrete action to take helps cut through the helpless feeling that's been drowning me since I saw Vivian's post. I thank her and promise to file the complaint today. After we hang up, I fill out the template carefully, attaching my documentation from the prison visit and screenshots of Vivian's misleading post. I submit it through the prison's online portal and get an automated confirmation email. It's something. It's action instead of just sitting here feeling victimized. That evening, I open my laptop and start compiling evidence. I create 2 new folders on my desktop, one labeled Board Response and one labeled Defamation Evidence. I go through all my old files from the original case and organize everything chronologically. Zach's intimidation texts from when he was pressuring me to keep lying. His Google searches for how to threaten witnesses that the police found on his phone. The traffic cam footage showing his car wasn't at my apartment when I claimed it was. Screenshots of his confession texts about hitting Jalea. The toxicology report showing he was drunk and high. Everything that proves his current story about me being delusional is complete garbage. The methodical work is almost calming, giving my anxious brain something productive to focus on instead of spiraling. I work for 3 hours straight, barely noticing time passing. When I'm done, I have 2 organized folders with time-stamped evidence that contradicts every major claim Zach made in that podcast. I back everything up to cloud storage and an external hard drive. Then I start a new document to track the online harassment. I go back through social media and screenshot the worst comments from the past few days. As I'm organizing them, I start noticing patterns. Multiple accounts using identical language, like they copied and pasted from the same source. Posts appearing within minutes of each other, almost like they're coordinated. Some accounts have 0 post history before commenting on my situation, obvious bot or throwaway accounts. Some are clearly real people, but they're all saying the same things in slightly different words. Seeing the manipulation laid out this way shifts something in my head. This isn't everyone hating me. This is me being targeted by a harassment campaign, probably organized by Zach's supporters, or maybe even Zach himself through people on the outside. That feels more survivable somehow, more manageable than thinking the entire internet genuinely wants me destroyed. I save the harassment documentation file and add it to my evidence folders. The next morning I have the HR meeting at the hospital. I put on clean clothes and drive over early. The director's office is on the 3rd floor. I sit in the waiting area for 10 minutes before getting called in. The meeting is awkward and formal. The director and my supervisor are both there. They tell me I'm staying on paid administrative leave, but they warn me sternly about maintaining patient privacy if I make any public statements. The director's tone isn't hostile exactly, but it's disappointed, like I've let everyone down. That somehow stings worse than if she'd just been angry. She says they're not making any decisions about my future until the state board completes their review. My supervisor barely makes eye contact with me the whole time. They hand me paperwork to sign acknowledging the terms of my leave. When I leave the building, I have to surrender my employee badge temporarily. The security guard deactivates it right there and hands it back to me. I walk to my car feeling like I'm in some kind of professional purgatory, not fired but not really employed either. That afternoon, I make a strategic decision about social media. I delete my remaining public accounts except for one profile I set to completely private. I'll use that locked account only to capture evidence of harassment if I need it for legal purposes. Letting go of my online presence feels like admitting defeat in some way. But it also feels like shedding a weight I didn't realize was crushing me. The constant notification anxiety, the compulsive checking to see what people are saying, the spiral of reading hateful comments, all of that eases within hours of deleting the apps from my phone. My apartment feels quieter. My brain feels less cluttered. I can actually focus on other things for more than 5 minutes at a time. The next day, I have my first appointment with Kiara Lee, the therapist I found who specializes in trauma. Her office is in a professional building downtown. The waiting room has comfortable chairs and calming artwork. She comes out to greet me right on time, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. We go into her office and she has me fill out some intake paperwork while she reviews the notes from our phone screening. Then we start talking. She introduces concepts I've never heard of before, like moral injury, the psychological damage that comes from violating your own values even under coercion. She explains how gaslighting works at a brain level, how it makes you doubt your own memory and perception. She validates that my initial lie was wrong, but my decision to tell the truth was brave, and those two things can exist together. I don't have to be all good or all bad. I can be someone who made a serious mistake under pressure, and then did the right thing when it mattered most. Hearing her explain it that way makes me feel like someone finally handed me a map for navigating this psychological mess instead of just stumbling through it blind. We talk for the full 50 minutes and she gives me some homework, writing exercises to process the guilt and shame. I leave her office feeling wrung out but also somehow lighter, like I've been carrying a backpack full of rocks, and she helped me set it down for a minute. That evening, I'm making dinner when my phone buzzes with a text from a number I don't recognize. I almost delete it as spam, but something makes me open it. It's from a guy I knew in college, someone I haven't talked to in probably 5 years. His message is long. He says he saw the news about my situation and wanted to reach out. He tells me Zach pulled similar manipulation tactics on him during sophomore year over a plagiarism incident. Zach found out this guy had copied part of a paper and used that knowledge as leverage for months, making him do favors and cover for him. The guy says he's been carrying guilt about not speaking up about Zach's character during the trial. He offers to corroborate Zach's pattern of coercion if it would help my case. Reading his text makes me feel less alone and less crazy. I'm not the only person Zach has manipulated this way. There's a pattern here, documented behavior going back years. I text back asking if he'd be willing to share his account with my lawyer, and he responds immediately saying yes, absolutely, whatever I need. I forward the text thread to Sinclair's office with a note explaining the context. 2 days later, Prosecutor Sinclair calls me. His voice is steady and professional. He tells me he's reviewed all the evidence I compiled and the text from my college friend. He advises me to draft a sworn affidavit rebutting Zach's specific claims point by point. He outlines the possibility of a civil defamation suit if the harassment continues and causes measurable damage to my career or reputation. Hearing him discuss legal options in concrete terms is deeply reassuring. This isn't just he said, she said anymore. There are actual mechanisms for fighting back, legal tools I can use. He explains the process for the affidavit and sends me examples to work from. We agree I'll draft it over the weekend and send it to him for review early next week. After we hang up, I feel something I haven't felt in weeks. Not quite hope, but maybe determination. I have a plan. I have evidence. I have professionals helping me. Zach can keep lying from prison, but the truth has documentation and the lies don't. I open my laptop and start working on the affidavit outline, organizing my thoughts and matching them to evidence. The work feels purposeful instead of desperate. I'm not just defending myself anymore. I'm building a case. Sinclair emails me back within an hour with edits to my draft, and we go back and forth maybe 6 times over the next 2 days, cutting anything that sounds defensive or angry. He helps me focus on the facts. I initially lied to police. I came forward with the truth. I cooperated fully with the case. I have deep concern for Jalea and her family. That's it. Nothing about Zach's character. Nothing attacking him. Nothing that makes me sound like I'm trying to win a fight. Just what I did and what I feel about the victim. Sinclair tells me to hold off posting it until after my second prison visit, which I schedule for 2 days from now. The waiting feels hard but also smart, like I'm finally thinking instead of just reacting to every new crisis. Late that night, I'm lying in bed scrolling through my phone when a message comes through from the victim's advocate. She sent me a short voice recording with an update about Jalea's progress. I plug in my headphones and listen. Jalea has been working with physical therapists and she's gotten back some upper body strength. She can move her wheelchair by herself now instead of needing someone to push her. Her daughter is seeing a counselor and slowly getting used to the new normal. The advocate's voice is kind and professional, not blaming me, but just sharing information she thought I should know. I listened to it 3 times. Hearing about their strength while I'm drowning in online hate and career panic puts everything into focus. My reputation is damaged, but it's just reputation. Jalea lost her ability to walk. Her daughter lost having a mom who can run and play. I lost some respect and my job is on hold. They lost everything that night on Riverside. My problems are real, but they're nothing compared to what Zach took from that family. The prison visit 2 days later starts with the same security process, the metal detector and the waiting room that smells like cleaning products and sadness. When Zach sits down across from me this time, I don't waste any energy on small talk. I ask him calmly to issue a public statement taking back the mental illness claims. He leans back in his chair with this almost friendly expression and immediately counters with his own request. He wants me to recant my trial testimony to support his appeal. His tone is so casual, like he's asking me to help him move furniture or something equally normal. I feel that old familiar pull, that instinct to give him what he wants so he'll stop making my life harder. The threat is there even though he doesn't say it directly. If I don't help him, he'll make things worse. He always makes things worse. But I hold firm and tell him no. Zach shifts tactics without missing a beat. He promises to call off the online harassment and contact the podcaster to issue a correction if I'll just admit I was confused about what happened that night. He makes it sound so easy and so reasonable. Just a small compromise to make all this pain stop. Just say I was mixed up about the details. He's not asking me to lie, he says, just to acknowledge that my memory might not be perfect. I sit there looking at him, and I remember Jalea's daughter's face on the news, that little girl holding up a birthday card for her mom. I remember the advocate's message about how hard Jalea is working just to move her own wheelchair. I tell Zach clearly and slowly that I'm not lying again. Not for him, not for anyone. The visit ends with him calling me self-righteous and stupid. He says I'm going to regret this choice when the harassment gets worse and nobody will hire me. I walk out without responding. There's already an email from Sinclair waiting for me. He sent a formal letter advising 0 further contact with Zach without legal counsel present. Somehow he knew exactly when I'd need that boundary reinforced. The letter is direct and clear. Any future communication could mess up both the criminal case and my licensing defense. Zach has proven he'll use every interaction against me. Sinclair includes specific instructions. No more visits, no phone calls, no letters. If Zach tries to contact me, I forward everything to Sinclair's office without responding. Reading it makes me feel protected and also kind of embarrassed that I needed someone else to tell me what I should have already known. 2 days later, I walk out to my car in the morning and find long, ugly scratches down the passenger side. Someone keyed it during the night. The scratches aren't deep enough to hit metal, but they're bad enough that fixing them will cost money I don't have right now. I take photos from multiple angles with my phone and then drive straight to the police station to file a report. The officer who takes my statement is professional, but not particularly hopeful about finding who did it. I explain about the online harassment and the ongoing situation with Zach and his supporters. She writes everything down and gives me a case number. I know they probably won't catch whoever did this, but having the documentation feels important anyway. The property damage makes the online threats feel more real. Someone angry enough to key my car might be angry enough to do worse. I show Detective Finch everything the next day when she calls me in for a follow-up meeting. The police report, the threatening messages I've been collecting, the pattern of it all getting worse instead of better. She opens a formal harassment investigation on the spot. She gives me practical advice about installing a security camera pointed at my parking spot and developing a safety plan. She tells me to vary my routes when I drive anywhere and to check in with someone every day so there's a record of my safety. Her approach is matter-of-fact, not trying to scare me but not downplaying the danger either. This is serious, but it's also manageable if I take the right steps. Something about her calm, professional handling of it makes me feel both more frightened and more grounded. That evening, an email comes through from Vivian, the podcaster. She's reaching out directly to invite me for a balanced interview where I can share my side of the story. For about 10 minutes, I'm so tempted I actually start drafting a response saying yes. Finally, a chance to be heard by the same audience that heard Zach's lies. A chance to set the record straight with evidence and facts. But then I forward the email to both Sinclair and Kiara Lee, asking for their advice. They both respond within hours with the same message. Podcasters edit for drama. I'd have no control over how my words get framed or what parts they use. Vivian already showed she's willing to platform Zach's lies without fact-checking them. Why would she treat me any differently? I write back to Vivian declining politely and thanking her for the opportunity. Hitting send on that email makes me feel proud of myself for once, like I made a smart choice instead of an emotional one. My second therapy session with Kiara Lee focuses on identifying my specific shame triggers. She walks me through how to recognize when I'm being manipulated versus when I'm genuinely responsible for something. We work on setting boundaries with media. I don't need to read every comment about my case. I don't need to listen to every podcast episode. She introduces this idea called trauma-informed media consumption, and it's like someone finally gave me permission to protect myself instead of forcing myself to witness every attack. She explains how my brain is trying to monitor threats by consuming all the negative content, but that's actually making my anxiety worse instead of better. We practice some techniques for recognizing manipulation patterns in real time. After days of drafting and revising, I finally published the statement on my locked social media account. I keep it under 200 words like Sinclair advised. I emphasize the facts without attacking anyone. I initially lied. I came forward with the truth. I cooperated fully with prosecution. I have deep compassion for Jalea and her family. That's all I say. I read it out loud 3 times before posting to make sure it sounds right. My hand hovers over the post button for a solid minute before I finally click it. The fear is immediate and strong. But Sinclair approved every single word, and I trust his judgment more than my own panic right now. The next morning, I wake up to 3 new emails and my stomach drops before I even open them. The first one is from the State Nursing Board with subject line, Case Investigation, Official Notice. And I have to read it twice because the language is so formal and cold. They received my statement and supporting documents. They're opening a formal investigation. I'm warned not to discuss the case publicly while their investigation is ongoing. The whole thing feels like a threat, even though it's supposed to be neutral. Like anything I say from this point forward could be twisted and used to revoke my license permanently. I forward it to Sinclair with a short message asking if this is normal, and he responds within 20 minutes saying, yes, this is standard procedure, just follow their instructions exactly. I open a note on my phone where I've been keeping my crisis management rules and add number 7, maintain complete board silence. No social media posts about the investigation, no comments to anyone except my lawyer. I feel like I'm walking through a minefield where one wrong step ends everything. The second email is from my employer, and I'm almost too scared to open it. The subject line says, administrative leave update, and I click it expecting the worst. But it's not termination. They're keeping me on paid leave pending the board's review. They're not making any decisions about my future employment until the board finishes their investigation. It's not great, but it's not the immediate firing I was bracing for. I can still pay rent. I can still eat. I read the email 3 times to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, and then I just sit there feeling this weird mix of relief and dread. My phone buzzes with a text, and I almost ignore it because I'm so tired of bad news. But the name on the screen is Sarah Millard, a coworker I barely know from the ER. We've worked maybe 5 shifts together total. The text is short. Hey, I saw what's happening online. I just want you to know I believe you. I hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you need anything. I stare at that message for a full minute. This person has nothing to gain from supporting me. She could easily stay silent and avoid any association with my mess. But she reached out anyway. I start typing a response and my vision blurs. I'm crying for the first time in days, and it's not sad crying, it's relief crying. Someone who doesn't owe me anything just chose to believe me. I wipe my face and text back thanking her and saying I appreciate it more than she knows. The third email is from the Department of Corrections, and I open it expecting more bad news. But this one is different. They received my formal complaint about Zach's unauthorized media contact. They've initiated an internal review of his communications privileges. It's not a guarantee they'll actually do anything, but it's more than I expected. For the first time since this nightmare started, I feel like maybe the system isn't completely broken. Maybe there are actually some checks on what Zach can do from inside prison. Maybe I'm not completely powerless here. I screenshot the email and save it to my evidence folder, even though I'm trying to stop obsessing over documentation. 3 days later, I'm driving to the prison for my third scheduled visit, and I'm running through my script in my head. I'm going to stay calm. I'm going to request a public retraction. I'm not going to let him manipulate me. The drive takes 40 minutes, and I spend the whole time practicing what I'll say. But when I get to the security checkpoint, the guard looks at my ID and checks his computer and tells me my visit has been canceled. I ask why, and he says the inmate received a disciplinary write-up and lost visitation privileges temporarily. I just stand there processing that. My complaint actually had consequences. Zach got written up for unauthorized media contact, and now he can't have visitors. The irony isn't lost on me. I drove all the way here, and I'm frustrated I wasted the trip. But I'm also relieved I don't have to sit across from him and watch him try to twist everything I say. I walk back to my car feeling this strange mix of disappointment and hope, like maybe I'm not as helpless as I thought. That night I sit at my kitchen table with a blank piece of paper and I write a letter to Jalea Hernandez. I don't type it because I want it to be personal, and handwritten feels more genuine somehow. I start by apologizing for my initial lie. I explain how it delayed justice and prolonged her suffering. I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't try to justify what I did by explaining Zach's threats or my fear. I just own it. I tell her I'm genuinely sorry and I understand if she never wants to hear from me again. I write that I hope she and her daughter are doing as well as possible given everything. It takes me an hour to write 2 pages, because I keep stopping to make sure I'm not making it about me or my guilt. This needs to be about acknowledging the harm I caused her. I fold the letter and put it in an envelope. The next morning I call the victim's advocate assigned to Jalea's case. I explain I wrote a letter apologizing, and I want to give it to her only if Jalea actually wants to read it. I make it very clear I expect nothing in return. If she wants to throw it away unread, that's completely her choice. The advocate says she'll reach out to Jalea and let me know. I mail the letter to the advocate's office and feel like I've done the only thing I can do to try to make even the smallest amends. Detective Finch calls me the following week with an update on the harassment investigation. They traced one particularly nasty account that sent me death threats to someone in Ohio. But without an explicit threat of immediate violence, there's limited legal recourse. Most of the other accounts are using fake information or routing through VPNs that make them basically impossible to trace. She sounds frustrated explaining this, and I appreciate that she's actually trying. I tell her I understand and thank her for taking it seriously. After we hang up, I feel resigned more than angry. I already knew the internet makes real accountability nearly impossible. Having it confirmed just stings in a dull way. But at least it's documented that I reported it and law enforcement tried. 2 days later, Sinclair emails me a PDF attachment with subject line, "Motion filed. Immediate review recommended." I open it and it's a formal legal motion requesting a court order to restrict Zach's media access. The filing is 12 pages long and it's detailed and damning. Sinclair laid out Zach's entire pattern of coercion starting from college. The motion cites specific dates and quotes from Zach's threatening texts. It references his Google searches for how to intimidate witnesses. It argues that his recent podcast interview is a continuation of witness tampering and manipulation of public perception. Reading it makes me feel protected for the first time since this started. Someone with actual legal power is fighting for me in an official capacity. This isn't just me trying to defend myself online. This is a prosecutor telling a judge that what's happening to me is illegal and needs to stop. I read the motion 3 times and save it to every device I own. The next morning, Sinclair sends me a court transcript excerpt. The judge took the media restriction motion under advisement, which apparently means he's thinking about it but hasn't decided yet. Sinclair explains this is normal, but it could take weeks for a ruling. The waiting is brutal. Every day Zach has media access is another day he can do more damage to my reputation. I start checking my email obsessively every hour looking for updates from Sinclair or the court. I try to distract myself with TV, but I can't focus on anything that requires actual thought. I end up watching cooking shows and home renovation programs because they're mindless and soothing. 4 days after the motion was filed, Vivian Sellers drops a new podcast episode. The title is Censorship or Justice: The Fight to Silence Zach's Story. I don't listen to it, but the comments and social media posts flood my locked account's message requests immediately. She's framing Sinclair's motion as an attack on free speech and an attempt to silence a wrongfully convicted man. The harassment spikes hard. I get 100 new threatening messages in the first 12 hours. People calling me a fascist and a liar and saying I'm trying to cover up the truth. But then something interesting happens. After about 48 hours, the spike plateaus and then starts dropping. The algorithm moves on to whatever new outrage is trending. I watch the harassment numbers go down, and I realize that internet fury has an incredibly short attention span. My life being destroyed is just content to be consumed and forgotten when something newer and shinier comes along. It's both comforting and deeply depressing. My third therapy session with Kiara Lee is scheduled for Thursday afternoon, and I show up feeling exhausted. We spend the hour talking about control and what I'm actually responsible for. She helps me see the difference between things I can control, like my truthfulness and my cooperation with authorities, and my professional conduct, and things I can't control, like public opinion and other people's choices. She explains that I'm responsible for telling the truth, but I'm not responsible for making everyone believe me. That distinction sounds obvious when she says it, but actually accepting it emotionally is way harder than I expected. I keep wanting to fix everyone's perception of me, and she keeps redirecting me to focus on what I actually did and whether I can live with that. By the end of the session, I feel slightly less crushed by the weight of strangers' opinions, but I know this is going to take a lot more work to really internalize. That night, I open my laptop and pull up the prison visitation system. My cursor hovers over the cancel button for maybe 30 seconds before I click it. A confirmation screen pops up asking if I'm sure I want to remove Zach from my approved visitor list, and I click yes without hesitation. The system processes for a few seconds, then displays a message that my request has been submitted and will be processed within 48 hours. I close the laptop, and the weight that lifts off my chest is immediate and physical, like I've been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. I don't owe Zach my time or my energy or my presence. That boundary is mine to set, and I just set it. I sleep better that night than I have in weeks. No nightmares about prison visits or manipulation tactics, just deep blank sleep that my body desperately needed. The next morning, I wake up to an email from the state nursing board with the subject line, "Formal Hearing Notice," and my stomach drops before I even open it. The email is formal and bureaucratic, explaining that my hearing is scheduled for 5 weeks from today, and I need to submit a comprehensive response packet including all relevant evidence, witness statements, character references, and any supporting documentation that demonstrates my fitness to practice nursing. They list specific requirements in bullet points and emphasize that failure to provide complete documentation may result in an adverse decision. I forward the email to Sinclair immediately with a note asking for guidance on what to include and how to frame everything. He responds within an hour with a detailed list of documents I should gather and offers to write a letter on my behalf explaining the immunity agreement and my cooperation with the prosecution. I spend the entire weekend assembling my defense packet, spreading everything across my kitchen table like I'm building a legal case, which I guess I am. I print out every threatening text Zach ever sent me, highlighting the ones where he explicitly leverages my mental health history and the college drug charge. I include the immunity letter from Sinclair with his official letterhead and signature. I track down the memo Detective Finch wrote about my cooperation and voluntary disclosure, and she emails me a clean copy within hours of my request. My employer sends a professional letter confirming my work history, performance reviews, and the fact that I'm currently on administrative leave pending board review, but have no disciplinary history with the hospital. Kiara Lee provides documentation of our therapy sessions, with a summary explaining that I'm actively addressing trauma and developing healthy coping strategies, and she includes her professional opinion that I demonstrate genuine remorse and commitment to ethical practice. I write a personal statement that takes me 4 drafts to get right, owning the initial lie without making excuses but explaining the coercion and fear that led to it, then emphasizing how coming forward demonstrated my ultimate commitment to truth over self-protection. I organize everything chronologically in a 3-ring binder with labeled tabs and a table of contents. The final packet is 80 pages and represents every piece of evidence I have that I'm not the unstable liar Zach painted me as. I make 3 copies, one for the board, one for myself, and one backup, then drive to the board office on Monday morning to hand-deliver it with a signature confirmation. The clerk stamps my receipt and tells me the hearing is scheduled for 9 a.m. in Conference Room B, and I should arrive 15 minutes early. I thank her and leave feeling like I've done everything I possibly can to defend myself, and now it's out of my hands. 5 weeks crawl by with agonizing slowness. I keep busy with therapy sessions and checking my email obsessively for any updates from the board or Sinclair. I avoid social media entirely, except for my locked evidence account, which I barely check anymore. The night before the hearing, I can't sleep, lying in bed rehearsing answers to possible questions and trying to predict what the board members will focus on. I finally give up around 5 a.m. and take a long shower, then put on my most professional outfit, a navy suit I bought specifically for this hearing because I want to look like someone who takes their nursing license seriously. I arrive at the board office at 8:45 a.m. and check in with the receptionist who directs me to a waiting area outside Conference Room B. Sinclair shows up at 8:50 looking calm and professional, and he sits with me going over likely questions and reminding me to answer honestly, but not to volunteer information they don't ask for. At exactly 9 a.m., the door opens and a woman in business attire calls my name. The conference room has a long table with 5 board members sitting on one side, 3 women and 2 men, all with serious expressions and thick folders in front of them. I sit across from them with Sinclair beside me, and my hands are already sweating. The chair, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes, introduces the panel and explains the hearing process. They've reviewed my packet and have questions about my initial false statement to police and my subsequent cooperation. The first question hits hard, asking why I lied in the first place if I knew it was wrong. I take a breath and explain Zach's coercion, the threats about my mental health history, the leverage he had from college, the fear of losing everything I'd worked for. I don't make excuses. I just lay out what happened and own that fear doesn't justify lying to police. One of the male board members asks how they can trust my judgment now if I was willing to lie under pressure. I explain that coming forward was the hardest thing I've ever done because I knew it would expose me to exactly this kind of scrutiny. But I did it anyway because the victim deserved justice, and I couldn't live with myself knowing I'd helped Zach escape consequences. I referenced Sinclair's immunity letter and Detective Finch's memo about my voluntary cooperation, pointing out that I came forward before they had definitive proof against me, which demonstrates I chose truth over self-protection when it really mattered. Another board member asks about my mental health history and whether my psychiatric hospitalization affects my ability to practice safely. I explain that my hospitalization was years ago during a crisis period, that I've been in consistent therapy since then, and that Kiara Lee's documentation shows I have effective coping strategies and no current safety concerns. I emphasize that mental health history doesn't make someone unfit to practice, and that I've never had any patient safety issues or workplace incidents related to my mental health. The questions continue for almost an hour, covering everything from my relationship with Zach, to my understanding of professional ethics, to my plans for maintaining accountability going forward. Sinclair interjects occasionally to clarify legal points or reference specific documents in my packet. I can see the board members taking notes and exchanging glances, but I can't read their expressions. Finally, the chair thanks me for my candor and asks if I have anything else to add. I take a moment, then say that I know my initial lie was serious and wrong, but I also know that nurses make mistakes, and the question is whether we learn from them and do better, and I'm committed to doing better every single day. The chair nods and explains that the board will deliberate and call me back in with their decision. I sit in the hallway for 2 hours that feel like 2 years. Sinclair sits with me for the first hour, then has to leave for another appointment, squeezing my shoulder and telling me I did well in there. I pace the hallway, sit down, stand up, check my phone, put my phone away, repeat. Other people come and go for their own hearings, and I wonder what their stories are, what brought them here. At 11:30 a.m., the door opens and the same woman calls my name again. I walk back into the conference room on shaky legs and sit down. The chair looks at me with an expression I can't quite read and begins speaking in a formal tone. She explains that the board has carefully considered all the evidence in my testimony today. They acknowledge the seriousness of my initial false statement to law enforcement and the ethical breach that represents. However, they also recognize the coercive circumstances, my voluntary disclosure and cooperation with authorities, the immunity agreement that reflects prosecutorial confidence in my truthfulness, and my demonstrated commitment to accountability through therapy and this hearing process. She pauses and I stop breathing. The board has decided to retain my nursing license, but place me on 12-month probation with specific conditions, including mandatory ethics coursework, supervision requirements at work, and quarterly check-ins with a board-assigned monitor. I'll need to complete an ethics remediation program within 6 months and submit quarterly reports documenting my compliance with all probation terms. Any violations during the probation period could result in license suspension or revocation. She emphasizes that this is a serious sanction reflecting the gravity of my conduct, but also recognition that I took responsibility and demonstrated genuine remorse. I thank the board and leave the room in a daze. It's not the complete vindication I wanted, but it's not the career-ending revocation I feared. I still have my license. I can still work as a nurse. I just have to prove over the next year that I deserve the second chance they're giving me. I sit in my car in the parking lot and cry for 10 minutes, not from sadness, but from sheer relief that it's over, and I survived it. A week after the hearing, Sinclair emails me a copy of the judge's ruling on the media restriction motion. I open the PDF with my heart pounding, hoping for a complete ban on Zach's interviews. The ruling is dense legal language, but the key points are clear enough. The judge acknowledges concerns about witness intimidation and manipulation of public perception, but also recognizes First Amendment considerations. He issues a limited order restricting Zach's non-legal media communications pending his appeal, meaning Zach can still talk to journalists and podcasters, but the prison has to review and approve content in advance, and Zach can't make specific statements about witnesses or ongoing legal proceedings. It's not a complete ban, more like oversight and boundaries. Sinclair's email explains that this is actually a pretty good outcome, given how courts usually balance free speech against other concerns. But I feel frustrated that Zach still has any media access at all. Later that day, I check Vivian Sellers' podcast feed and see she's added a brief disclaimer to the original episode that featured Zach. The disclaimer is bland and legalistic, noting ongoing legal proceedings and multiple perspectives, but the episode itself is still up and still getting downloads and comments. I want to be angry, but I'm mostly just tired. I got partial relief, not perfect justice, and that's probably the best I'll get in this situation. The legal system gave me some protection, but it can't undo the damage that's already done or prevent every future harm. I have to accept that some things are outside my control and focus on the things I can actually influence, which is basically just my own choices and actions going forward. 2 months pass in a blur of work and therapy and slowly rebuilding some sense of normal life. I'm back at the hospital on modified duty per my probation terms, working under supervision and being extra careful about every decision I make. The harassment has mostly died down to occasional flare-ups when someone rediscovers the old podcast episode. One Tuesday morning, I'm getting ready for a shift when I get an email notification from the appellate court. My hands shake opening it because I know Zach filed an appeal, and I've been dreading what it might say. The document is 23 pages of dense legal language, but Sinclair sends me a summary an hour later. Zach's appeal claimed that I recanted my testimony and that his conviction was based on unreliable witness statements. But the appeals court reviewed the actual trial record and found no recantation anywhere. The decision is dry and procedural, but the message is crystal clear. Zach's conviction stands on overwhelming evidence, including traffic camera footage, toxicology reports, his own Google searches, and multiple witness statements. My testimony was one piece among many, and the court found it credible and consistent with all other evidence. The appeals court affirms the original conviction and denies Zach's appeal in its entirety. I read the decision 3 times, making sure I understand it correctly. The truth held up under scrutiny. The legal system worked, at least this time. I don't feel celebratory, just quietly satisfied that all of Zach's manipulation and media stunts couldn't overcome the actual facts of what happened that night on Riverside Drive. 4 months after I sent my letter to Jalea through the victim's advocate, I get a phone call from the advocate asking if I'm still interested in meeting with Jalea. My heart nearly stops. I say yes immediately, trying not to sound too eager or desperate. The advocate explains that Jalea has agreed to a brief supervised meeting at her office, maybe 30 minutes, just to hear what I have to say. She emphasizes that I shouldn't expect forgiveness or closure. This is purely for Jalea's benefit and healing process, not mine. I agree to whatever terms she wants. The meeting is scheduled for the following Thursday at 2 p.m. I spend the days leading up to it trying to figure out what to say, but eventually I realize there's no script for this. I just need to listen and acknowledge the harm I caused. Thursday arrives and I drive to the victim's advocate's office in a medical building downtown. The advocate meets me in the waiting room and takes me to a small conference room where Jalea is already sitting in her wheelchair. She looks tired and older than her 22 years, and seeing her in person after months of thinking about her makes everything feel suddenly very real. I sit down across from her, and the advocate sits between us slightly off to the side. I start to apologize, but Jalea holds up her hand and starts talking first. She tells me how the initial lie cost her family weeks of uncertainty while the investigation stalled. She explains how they couldn't access victim services right away because the case wasn't progressing. She describes the fear and anger of not knowing if justice would ever happen while she was lying in a hospital bed learning she'd never walk again. Her voice is calm but firm, and I can see the strength it takes for her to tell me these things. I don't interrupt or defend myself, I just listen and nod and let her say everything she needs to say. When she finishes, I thank her for being willing to meet with me at all. I tell her I can't undo what I did, but I want her to know that coming forward was the right choice, even though it came late, and that I think about her and her daughter constantly. I don't ask for forgiveness because I don't deserve it, and she doesn't owe it to me. After about 20 minutes, Jalea says she's tired and needs to go. I thank her again and leave quickly, not wanting to take up more of her time or energy than she's willing to give. Driving home, I feel wrung out, but also lighter, like I've been carrying a weight of uncertainty about how my actions affected her, and now I know. It's worse than I imagined, but also more real and more human. She's not just a victim in a news story, she's a person who had to live with the consequences of Zach's crime and my lie, and she chose to give me a few minutes of her time to tell me what that was like. That feels like a grace I don't deserve but desperately needed. The following week, I see a flyer at the hospital for a local road safety advocacy group that's looking for volunteers. They meet twice a month to push for better lighting and crosswalks in high-risk areas around the city. I think about it for a few days, then email the contact person and show up to the next meeting in a church basement on a Wednesday night. There are maybe 15 people there, mostly older folks and a few younger activists. Nobody recognizes me or asks why I'm there. The meeting is practical and focused, discussing specific intersections that need attention and strategies for getting city council to prioritize pedestrian safety. I volunteer to help with their petition campaign and sign up for a weekend event where we'll be collecting signatures at a farmer's market. The work is simple and concrete, just showing up and doing something constructive. I don't mention my connection to Jalea's case and nobody needs to know. Contributing something that might prevent future accidents feels like a small way to honor what happened without making it about my redemption or my feelings. Over the next few meetings, I get to know some of the other volunteers, and they're kind people who care about making their community safer. One older woman brings homemade cookies to every meeting. A younger guy works for the city planning department and gives us insider tips on how to navigate bureaucracy. Nobody treats me like I'm damaged or suspicious, they just treat me like another volunteer who wants to help. It's a relief to be in a space where I'm just a regular person doing regular work. The online harassment has dropped to occasional flare-ups when someone rediscovers the old podcast episode and decides to send me angry messages. It still happens maybe once every couple weeks, someone finding my locked social media account or my work email and sending threats or insults. But it's manageable now in a way it wasn't before. I've developed a thick skin and a quick trigger finger on the block button. I recognize the patterns of bot accounts versus real people, bad faith actors versus people who might actually be open to hearing the full story. Most of the time I just block and report and move on with my day. What used to send me into panic spirals and sleepless nights now barely registers as more than a minor annoyance. I've learned to distinguish between criticism I should take seriously and harassment I should ignore. The former is rare and usually comes from people who actually know the facts of the case. The latter is constant but meaningless, just internet noise from people who got their information from a viral podcast and never bothered to check if it was accurate. I don't engage anymore, don't try to defend myself or correct the record in comment sections. I just document anything that crosses the line into threats, send it to Detective Finch if it's serious enough, and otherwise let it roll off me like water off a duck. My therapist calls this progress, and I guess she's right. 3 weeks later, I'm at work when I get a text from a number I don't recognize. The message says, "Hey, it's Rachel from nursing school. I saw the board decision and read some of the court documents. I owe you an apology." My stomach flips because Rachel was one of my closest friends in the school, and she completely cut me off after the podcast episode went viral. I text back asking if she wants to talk, and she suggests coffee next month when her schedule calms down. We make tentative plans for a Saturday morning at a cafe near campus. The reconnection feels fragile but genuine. Over the next few days, we exchange a few more texts, and she admits she got caught up in the viral narrative and didn't look at the actual evidence until recently. She says she feels terrible about doubting me and wants to hear my side of things properly. I appreciate her honesty and her willingness to admit she was wrong. Not many people are willing to do that, to actually reconsider their initial judgment and reach out to apologize. It doesn't erase the pain of losing her friendship during the worst time of my life, but it opens a door to maybe rebuilding something. I'm not sure what our friendship will look like going forward or if it can ever be what it was before, but I'm willing to try. Having one person from my old life reach back out and say they believe me now feels like a small victory in a war I've mostly lost. I'll take it. Detective Finch calls me 3 days after my coffee with Rachel to give me an update on the harassment investigation. She explains that they managed to track down one local person who made specific threats about finding me at work and making me pay. That person got cited for a misdemeanor and has to stay away from me in the hospital. But she admits that most of the online trolls are using fake accounts or posting from out of state, which makes them basically impossible to trace or prosecute. Her voice sounds tired when she tells me this, like she wishes she had better news. I thank her for taking it all seriously, even when the results are limited, and she surprises me by saying I handled an impossible situation with more grace than most people could manage. After we hang up, I feel this weird mix of grateful and frustrated. One person held accountable out of hundreds who participated feels like a drop in the ocean, but it's still one person who can't hurt me anymore. I save the case number she gives me and file it away with everything else. The following Monday, I return to nursing on modified duty per my probation terms. The board's conditions are strict: no independent practice for 6 months, regular supervision by a senior nurse, and mandatory check-ins with my assigned monitor every 2 weeks. My first shift back is shaky as hell. I second-guess every single decision, triple-check medication doses, and ask for backup on procedures I could do in my sleep. My hands shake when I insert an IV on my second patient, and I have to take a breath and start over. But I'm competent, and my patients don't suffer. Nobody dies, nobody gets hurt, and by the end of the shift, I'm exhausted but functional. A senior nurse named Melanie, who I've always respected, pulls me aside in the break room before I leave. She touches my shoulder and tells me she's glad I'm back, that the unit missed me. That simple statement steadies something inside me that's been wobbly for months. I drive home feeling like maybe I can actually do this, like maybe I'm not permanently broken. My 6th therapy session with Kiara Lee happens on Thursday afternoon, and we spend the whole hour developing a concrete plan for managing triggers at work. She helps me identify my specific warning signs, the tight feeling in my chest, the way my thoughts start racing, the urge to check my phone constantly for new harassment. We create what she calls a hierarchy of coping tools, starting with basic grounding techniques I can use on the floor and building up to emergency interventions if I'm heading toward a full panic attack. She has me practice the 5 senses grounding exercise right there in her office. Name 5 things I can see, 4 I can touch, 3 I can hear, 2 I can smell, 1 I can taste. It feels silly at first, but by the 3rd round I notice my breathing has slowed down. We write out the whole plan on a card small enough to fit in my scrubs pocket so I can reference it during shifts. Having actual strategies instead of just hoping I'll be okay makes returning to full duty feel less scary. I'm not gambling on my mental state holding up. I have tools I can use when things get hard. That weekend, I finally tackle the digital mess I've been maintaining since the crisis started. I plug in an external hard drive and spend Saturday afternoon archiving all the evidence and documentation, screenshots of Zach's threats, copies of court filings, the board decision, Detective Finch's memos, everything. Keeping it all felt necessary during the crisis, like I needed instant access to prove I was telling the truth. But now it's just feeding my tendency to obsess and ruminate, to check and recheck the same files over and over. I keep one clean folder on my laptop with essential documents for the board and my lawyer, then I delete everything else. The obsessive bookmarks, the folders organized by date and category, the backup copies of backup copies. Watching the trash bin empty feels like reclaiming my computer from the nightmare. My desktop looks clean and normal again instead of like a war room. Monday brings an envelope from the Department of Corrections with Zach's name and the return address. My stomach drops when I see it, but I make myself open it standing at my kitchen counter. The letter is 2 pages of careful handwriting explaining how he's found God in prison and wants to make amends for the pain he caused. He writes about attending chapel services and reading the Bible and realizing he needs to take responsibility for his actions. But the language is clearly designed to hook my guilt and create an opening for future contact. He doesn't actually apologize for anything specific, just talks in vague terms about mistakes and regrets. He ends by asking if we can start writing to each other so he can properly make things right. I don't feel angry reading it, which surprises me. I just feel detached and a little sad that he's still trying to manipulate me even now. I take a photo of both pages with my phone, then I forward them to Sinclair with a brief message explaining what arrived. He responds within an hour saying he'll file it as evidence of continued manipulation attempts. I don't write back to Zach. I don't even consider it. My detachment from his tactics feels like the clearest sign of my healing, the proof that I'm finally seeing him clearly, instead of through the fog of old guilt and fear. That evening, I sit in my apartment with the lights low and let myself think about everything that's happened. I spend a quiet hour reflecting on the difference between truth and loyalty, and accepting that getting vindicated publicly isn't the same as finding peace. Some people will always believe Zach's version of events because it's more dramatic and confirms their existing biases about mental illness and unreliable witnesses. His story has heroes and villains and a clear narrative arc. The truth is messier and less satisfying. I can't control what strangers on the internet believe about me. I can only control whether I told the truth when it actually mattered, and I did. I chose Jalea and her daughter over protecting myself. That has to be enough. The acceptance feels heavy, but also freeing, like I'm finally putting down a weight I've been carrying since the podcast dropped. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life trying to convince people who don't want to be convinced. Coffee with my supportive coworker turns into a regular weekly thing over the next month. Every Thursday after our shift, we meet at the same cafe near the hospital and talk for an hour. Gradually, a small circle of trust forms with a few other colleagues who know my story and don't judge me for it. There's Melanie, the senior nurse who welcomed me back. There's Joseph from the ER who dealt with his own public scandal years ago. There's Jennifer who works in pediatrics and just seems to see people clearly without all the judgment. We don't talk about the case much. Mostly we just have normal conversations about work drama and terrible patients and weekend plans. But knowing they see me as a whole person rather than a scandal feels like rebuilding my social foundation one coffee at a time. These aren't deep friendships yet. Maybe they never will be. But they're real connections with people who know the worst thing about me and still choose to sit with me and laugh at my jokes. 6 weeks after the harassment peaked, Vivian Sellers moves on to covering a new true crime sensation about a missing college student in Oregon. Her podcast feed fills up with episodes about the new case, and my story stops appearing in the recommended queue. The algorithm has moved on to fresh outrage. I check my locked evidence capture account one last time and see that new comments on the old episodes have dropped to almost nothing. A few stragglers still find it and send me angry messages, but the wave has passed. I log off the account and spend 20 minutes going through the deactivation process, confirming multiple times that I really want to delete it. When it's finally gone, I feel this strange lightness. I'm choosing to keep my life deliberately smaller and steadier, rather than chasing public vindication I'll never fully achieve. My apartment is quiet when I look around it that night. My nursing shifts are routine and boring. I'm learning that this boring stability is actually the victory I needed all along. Not dramatic vindication or perfect justice, just the ability to live a normal life again without constant crisis.